Alibaba's Quen model reaches 1 million downloads. Revenue lines stay quiet while pricing power leaks away. Once on-device models clear 1 million users this quickly, hosted providers lose the ability to charge premium rates for inference. Data center operators carrying heavy debt will feel the squeeze first when enterprises move even 10% of workloads locally. That shift could force a reassessment of expansion plans before the end of next year. Watch the utilization reports from the largest GPU clusters for early signs of that pressure. Meta social media addiction trial set to begin. The damages claim draws headlines, but discovery of internal metrics poses the larger threat to Meta's operations. The company now weighs settling to avoid revealing engagement data that could invite copycat suits from additional states. Product decisions on teen safety features will face extra layers of legal review going forward. This opens space for competitors to market themselves as the safer alternative without the same baggage. TikTok and Snapchat stand to gain the most if migration accelerates during the trial. Google pays $10 million for Spirit Airlines data. $10 million buys 2 decades of flight operations data that no public dataset can replicate. Google can now train models on real scheduling, maintenance, and disruption patterns that improve its logistics and travel products. Rivals without similar access will lag in enterprise offerings to the aviation sector. The next bankruptcy filing in travel will see bidding wars that dwarf this number. Other carriers will start treating their logs as monetizable assets instead of internal records. Andreessen Horowitz targeted in DOJ antitrust probe. Board seats at rival AI firms create influence that standard investment disclosures miss. The probe signals antitrust focus shifting from big tech to the investors who shape multiple players at once. Andreessen's political connections may delay, but won't block demands for seat reductions or recusal rules. Other funds now review their overlapping holdings to avoid similar scrutiny. Portfolio companies face pressure to limit investor overlap before their own funding rounds close next year. Arm eyes acquisitions after reaching $300 billion valuation. Design teams at smaller AI hardware firms lose their safest licensing partner. Arm can now afford to buy the best remaining IP houses outright rather than wait for royalties. NVIDIA faces the choice of matching any premium or watching its CUDA alternatives get snapped up first. Within 12 months, the first such acquisition will force every fabless startup to renegotiate terms or accept Arm's bundled stack, raising their costs while Arm captures more of the margin. Anthropic annualized revenue hits $65 billion. Enterprise buyers now treat model choice as a board-level procurement decision rather than an engineering experiment. That shift leaves OpenAI no choice but to accelerate its own enterprise features or risk losing the same accounts within 18 months. The acceleration also raises the bar for every follow-on funding round at rival labs, where investors will demand similar revenue proof before writing checks at prior valuations. Smaller startups feel the pinch first. China removes Microsoft Windows from government systems. Procurement offices in Beijing have already shifted most new licenses to domestic alternatives over the past year. The formal policy simply codifies what Microsoft sales teams knew was coming. ByteDance now becomes the largest single customer left in the country and must decide whether to diversify its AI training stack away from Azure or accept higher long-term risk. That decision surfaces in the next 2 quarters. Domestic cloud providers stand to gain the displaced workloads immediately. Alibaba shares jump on new Alipay platform launch. Amazon and Shopify must now match the agent integration speed inside payment flows or lose Chinese merchants testing Alipay's new tools. Quen's 3 billion downloads create the usage data that accelerates feature iteration far beyond what OpenAI or Google can test in open markets. Rivals outside China will watch their enterprise pilots lag on real-world agent performance within the next year. The gap shows up first in conversion metrics reported by their early adopters. South Korea drops startup from sovereign AI contest. South Korea's elimination leaves the 3 remaining teams with an 18-month window to prove domestic inference hardware works at scale. Failure means the sovereign program defaults to foreign cloud providers by the end of next year and loses its independence claim. Samsung's Foundry stands as the only realistic path for 2 teams while the third must secure TSMC slots for its custom design. One locks in the first production contract before Q3 2025 and forces the others to match yields or exit the contest. Gravis Robotics hits $1 billion valuation with SoftBank investment. Retrofitting existing excavators pulls ahead of building new robots because SoftBank's capital targets attachments that ship this quarter. The data from those machines now flows back to train site-specific models that competitors without fleet access cannot match. Expect construction firms to demand similar retrofits from Caterpillar dealers within a year, shifting the market from hardware sales to subscription upgrades. This forces John Deere to accelerate its own automation kits or watch market share slip to the retrofit play. Higgsfield raises $400 million. Valuation hits $5.4 billion. The revenue already hitting $700 million annually from studios changes the game for anyone licensing similar video models. Expect those customers to demand custom fine-tunes that lock in the stack before competitors can match output quality. Within 18 months, one major animation house will shift its entire pipeline, forcing the rest to either match the throughput or renegotiate their own licensing terms downward. Smaller players lose the mid-tier market if they cannot clear the same ARR bar this year. Grok raises $350 million at $3.5 billion valuation. The pivot to renting NVIDIA hardware undercuts the original pitch that custom silicon would beat general-purpose chips on cost. Cloud customers will now compare rates directly against the big three providers, compressing margins on any workload that can run on standard GPUs. Over the next year too, inference startups will bundle NVIDIA capacity and turn the segment into a price war. This leaves pure custom chip plays with fewer enterprise takers unless they demonstrate clear latency wins on specific models. Whisper raises $280 million at $2 billion valuation. Voice just became the default input layer for knowledge work. Whisper's Canto model cuts error rates from 30% to below 10%, which means meetings no longer require a human note-taker or any post-editing pass. The real pressure lands on every existing productivity suite. They must now license similar accuracy or watch their document layer get bypassed entirely by direct voice-to-action workflows. Expect the first enterprise contracts to embed voice SLAs inside existing SaaS deals by early next year. Nick Storonsky VC firm closes $500 million fund. Patient Capital just found a new home in deep tech. Most consumer VCs still chase quick flips, but this pool targets hardware cycles that run 5 years or more. Robotics and chip startups gain a backer willing to sit through manufacturing ramps. Existing funds must either extend their own timelines or watch top founders migrate to longer-term mandates. This changes the game for anyone still writing 3-year funds. Expect the shift to appear in term sheets by next summer. Bedrock Robotics deploys autonomous driving in construction. Construction sites just became the first real proving ground for autonomy outside warehouses. Retrofitting existing excavators means no new hardware purchases, only software layers on iron already on the ground. The productivity gains will show up first in labor-short regions where projects have stalled for lack of operators. That undercuts the entire new equipment sales cycle. Caterpillar and Komatsu must now decide whether to build their own autonomy stacks or license to stay in bids. Expect joint ventures inside 12 months. Uber adds zipline drones to delivery network. Drone delivery scales only when the last-mile network already exists. The tether system changes the regulatory game because flights stay short and recoverable. Uber's investment buys it priority access to dense urban routes where ground traffic kills margins. DoorDash and Grubhub now face a choice: secure their own drone partners or accept higher delivery costs on every order above 3 miles. The first citywide rollouts will reveal whether drone economics actually beat bikes and drivers inside 18 months.